Hello, hello. Welcome to Healing Happens with Elsa Korinke. I'm Elsa. I am the host of this podcast. So welcome if you're watching on YouTube, hey, or if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, I'm happy you've tuned in. Welcome to episode 0. So in this episode, I'm just going to give you a nice little intro to what you can expect here on the Healing Happens podcast and a little bit about me. So in other words, allow me to introduce myself.
Allow me to reintroduce myself.
I'm just so excited about this, to be honest. The idea behind this podcast is it's going to be very raw. I'm not going to be doing a lot of editing. I'm definitely not going to be censoring myself on here. This is an opportunity for us to have open, honest, raw, real discussions about so many different topics. If you know me at all, you know that I'm a manifesting generator and I never like to pigeonhole myself into one thing. And so we're going to talk about it all here. So this has been a vision that I've had for a long time now, but the idea of having a podcast really dropped into my psyche last February of 2021, when I was working with my Reiki teacher in my Karuna Reiki Master training. I had all these ideas in my head for so long that, I had to have like all this fancy equipment and, like super editing skills and all this stuff to have a podcast. And she was like, no, I don't do any editing on my podcast. I literally just press record and I go. She's like, in one episode, there was literally a squirrel in the wall, like scratching and making all this noise. And it's just there on the podcast. So I was like, okay. And I've been working through the trademarking process of Healing Happens and, just kind of like building the vision for this entire brand. So Healing Happens is going to be a blog on Substack, this YouTube channel, if that's where you're watching it, and also a podcast available on all the major podcasting platforms. I ultimately want to also have a community space where people can join, where we can have, offline discussions about everything that comes up, on the blog, on the YouTube channel, on the podcast, and we can also just discuss, whatever's coming up for you. You can ask me questions, we can support each other in community. Really, the essence of Healing Happens is I want this to be a community space for us all to share, for us all to heal together, and for us to just support each other on our journeys and to be able to have the hard conversations that no one's having. That's a big part of my mission with this and just kind of my mission overall. So anyway, here we go. So in many ways, I am happy that the launch of this podcast has taken this long. And the reason I'm most grateful for that at this point in the journey is I am going through a major metamorphosis right now. And so the direction I would have taken this podcast even 3 months ago is vastly different than the direction that I want to take it now. And the thing that's really interesting to me is, if I had recorded this episode 0, even a couple months ago, I probably would have started this out with, a list of certifications and like who I am in the world based on this masculine structure of accreditation and what I've learned and what I've been through and, like what gives me authority, quote unquote, external authority and makes me, worthy and able to have this platform and to share with you. And I am moving so far away from that right now, which is a beautiful journey for me. And I'm making this really beautiful transition in this moment. And so I'm really excited for this podcast to grow and evolve alongside of me and to have this opportunity to, share my own evolution with you, because at the end of the day, yes, I've studied a lot, I've learned a lot, I've taken a lot of courses, I have all these certifications and all of this, but at the end of the day, my medicine really comes from within me. We are all born with our medicine within us. We are all born with a divine purpose, with our dharma, with our gifts within us. One of my teachers calls it, our sacred wounds. The things that we have had to work through and overcome in this life become once we transform them and once we, engage in that process of alchemy, those become our gifts to share with the world. And so I'm really exploring this idea of, intrinsic value and internal authority versus external authority, and just being the embodiment of my medicine, as opposed to, I am this practitioner and a that practitioner and master of this and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to go into, I'm not here to walk you through my CV. What I'm really here to share is just kind of the essence of this platform and what I intend to create with it. When I initially had the idea for Healing Happens, a big part of what dropped in for me was something that we talk a lot about in 12-step programs. Full disclosure, my true healing journey, I had pursued therapy and other things before this, but truly my healing journey began with sobriety and 12-step programs almost 10 years ago. May 3rd of 2013 is my sobriety date, and that truly is what I call my rebirth day. Nothing has ever been the same since then for me. So I entered this world and I entered this work through the 12-step background. And, something we talk a lot about in 12 steps, especially for newcomers, is, someone who has 3 days sober, who's just beginning the journey. They can look at someone with 30 years sober and be like, yeah, okay, that's great. But it's so inaccessible to them. At 3 days sober, when you have no idea how you're going to even make it through one more day, seeing someone with 30 years sober, it doesn't even compute like in your head. It's like, wait a second, like, no. And so something that we talk about a lot is, someone with 3 days sober is actually better off talking to someone with 30 days or, 3 months or maybe even 1 year, because to them, that actually serves as inspiration. That's something tangible that they can conceptualize, that they can grab onto to be like, okay, if I made it 3 days, maybe I can do that 10 more times and make it 30 days. If I made it 3 days, maybe, just maybe, I can make it 3 months. And so, there's all these amazing podcasts out there with all of these incredible experts and experts, whatever that means to you and to society, but people who have really spent decades or devoted their entire lives to a particular study, a particular modality, a particular path, and it's amazing to hear from them. I have been a huge follower and fan of Gabor Mate since 2016, when I began my somatic healing journey, and I really started unpacking this, oh my gosh, I wasn't actually born broken. There is so much more that I can do for myself. There's actually potential for healing, not just symptom management. Whoa, it just blew my whole world up. And those days, not a lot of people had heard of him. He wasn't on every single podcast that's out, but he had lots of lecture content on YouTube, and I read all of his earlier books, When the Body Says No and In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts. And it's just funny to me now, as I'm starting a podcast, that he's literally on every podcast ever. I'm like, how does he have time to eat or sleep? It seems like he's doing podcasts 24/7. And while it's amazing to hear from someone like him, and maybe he'll be on the Healing Happens podcast someday, who I want to interview and who I want to have discussions with and who I want to center are just regular people like you and me, who have made a decision to heal, who have committed themselves to the path of evolving, developing, growing, overcoming all of these false identities, you know, who really are taking responsibility for their lives and their healing and saying, no, like this stops with me. This stops today. I am no longer going to participate in victim consciousness. It's my time to heal. And I want to interview people who are at all stages of the journey and who work with all different modalities, you know? So I am going to be interviewing, you know, other practitioners, healers, facilitators, all that kind of stuff. But I also just want to interview people who are just on the path, you know? Who have made the decision to commit to themselves and their highest evolution. And I just want to talk to them about, you know, what was the moment when you knew that you were going to commit to this path? What were your first steps? What had you tried before? You know, what have your biggest challenges been? What have your greatest lessons been? Like, what are the gifts of this journey for you? And I want to go deep with them, and I want their stories to serve as reminders of what's possible for each and every one of us. So I'm really excited to bring those kinds of guests into this space. And, you know, when I was originally kind of planning this out, you know, I wanted to have like this structure, like this, you know, like I'll do episodes twice a month, and once will be a solo cast, and once will be with a guest, and like it's going to be this way, and it's going to follow this formula, and every episode will be released on a Tuesday. And I've largely stepped away from that. You know, I know that our masculine external world wants us to participate in that way. And I know that that does create consistency and it helps growth and things like this. But where I'm at in my journey right now is honoring the feminine and following threads of truth. And sticking to this rigid schedule doesn't allow me the freedom to share what is authentic and true in each and every moment. And that is my deepest commitment right now. So that's what I'm going to do. Some months, maybe you'll get 12 episodes, and some months, maybe we won't get any. You know, it's really going to depend on what's true in each moment. And I think at the beginning, it is going to be mostly solo casts. You know, I'm going to be coming on here and sharing, you know, on the YouTube channel if you like to watch in video format, you know, or on the podcast if you want to listen. I'm just going to be kind of laying the foundations of who I am, you know, what I believe is a human, what I believe is possible for each and every one of us, how I view every single person that is on planet Earth right now. You know, what I mean by terms like radical responsibility and total transparency and limitless freedom. You know, what integrity means to me. You know, sharing some of my core essence. Like, I want you to feel me, you know, I want these to be really these energetic transmissions. You know, of course, like, yes, you're watching or you're listening, but I want you to feel me and I want you to feel the guests. So I really want this to be a space for transmission and not just coming on here and being like, I'm scheduled to release a podcast today. Like, I must share. That's not what this is about. So I'm really excited to be in this space with you and to share in that way. My intention will be to interview, you know, at least one person a month. And I'm just going to come on here as I'm inspired. That being said, you know, as I mentioned, the Healing Happens brand and platform will be shared, you know, across several mediums. So if you're a fan of the written word, go check out the blog. If you like to listen, the podcast is here. If you like to watch, YouTube is here. And do not expect that the content on each platform is going to be the same all the time. If I'm inspired to write, I'm going to write. And that may not necessarily translate into a video or an audio transmission. If I am like, I gotta capture this on video and I'm in the moment, that may live only on YouTube. If I'm looking a mess and I'm in bed and I have to deliver a message, that may be an audio format only. I think it's more than likely that the guest interviews will be primarily in audio format on the podcast platforms only. But we'll kind of play with that, as we go with all these different platforms. This is new to me. It's a new way of sharing. And I'm just really excited to reach more people with my message and to share verbally and use my voice. I'm a triple Gemini. I have my sun, moon, and Mercury in Gemini, so I could talk forever. And so it's kind of shocking that I have not actually created a podcast until now, but I trust that everything is in the perfect timing. On YouTube, you will also find some actual practices. So if you want to, do some breath work or try some Reiki infused meditations or practice yoga nidra, some of these practices and these modalities that I bring up on here, you will have access to practices that I've created for you on the YouTube channel if you would like to practice alongside me. And then, comment, share, engage in the conversation. I really want this to be an open dialogue for all of us. And in the show notes and in the description on YouTube, I will add my website, elsakorinke.com. And also ways to contact me. If there's topics that you want to hear on here, I would love for you to give me things to respond to. Again, as a manifesting generator, I like that, reading through topics and being, ooh, yes, that's it. Obviously I'll be generating my own topics and my own content as well, but giving me things to respond to is always most welcome. So I really believe that personally my core essence is joy. I am such a joyful person. I'm a life of the party, light up the room, very animated kind of person. I lost touch with that truth about myself for a very long time, in the midst of going down into the darkness before, alchemizing all of that and being where I am today. And I will share that as time goes on and as it's appropriate and as this unravels. But for now, I just wanted to share this first transmission. Healing happens, episode 0 in the books. Finger guns and everything, very appropriate. If you're listening on the podcast, I guess you can't see that. But I'm really excited to be in this space with you. I intend to be pretty prolific with my sharing, so I'm hoping to come on here pretty regularly to engage with you and talk to you and just illuminate the path and to highlight and showcase what is possible for each and every one of us. If I can do it, if our guests can do it, you can transform your life as well. And I just really want to highlight that here in this space. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for following along. Episode 1 to follow very soon. And I'll also put links to the blog and, ways to find me on social media and things like that if you'd like to interact and read what's going on in my other spaces. Or, if you would like to actually work with me one-on-one, the invitation is always open for that as well. Somatic healing, embodiment work, spiritual transformation, all that kind of stuff is right in my wheelhouse. And I'm really excited to expand my community, work with more people in the one-on-one space, and also just interact with more people here on the Healing Happens platforms this year. So thank you for being here. Thank you for following along. And I can't wait to share more with you.